Shalom and welcome to our 2020 Passover. Yahweh truly has, we would hope that Yahweh would truly mark over our doors with the blood of the Lamb during this time, because we know that some very, very interesting things are taking place. And this is a really good time to celebrate our Passover when you really look at the things that are taking place. When you talk about just having a so-called ailment that somebody could breathe in and cause them death, it really sounds exactly like what happened during the time of the Passover, where during our first Passover, where all the firstborn of Egypt were killed, and that destroyer only went into the houses of those that were not marked over with the blood of the Lamb. So and it's quite interesting that even these things even are making, you know, their real push right during this very time. For some, that would be a reason not to deal with the things of Passover, but for me, it magnifies the reason why we should be dealing with this thing, because it is a Sabbath, or, well, we don't have to read the oracles on this. So we're going to begin today's sermon in Exodus chapter 12. Now, after each Hebrew New Year, 14 days later comes the Passover. The Passover is the feast where the children of Israel commemorate our release from the oppressors of Egypt. The Passover is also the time where we commemorate the great sacrifice that Yahshua the Messiah made for his people, Israel. Yahshua became the Lamb of Elohim by sacrificing himself in order to make atonement for the sins of the children of Israel. This holy feast is not just a commemoration of things concerning the past, but also one of prophecy. For one day soon, Yahweh shall command this day's Pharaoh that he must let his people go. We're going to begin in Exodus chapter 12, and let's start that at verse 1.
Exodus chapter 12 and verse 1. And Yahweh spake unto Moshe and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you.
Right. So then we know that just the beginning, our year does not start the same way as the heathen year starts. The heathen year starts at January. Ours start at the end of March and beginning of April. This is where they came up with April Fools. And as it stands, I would rather be an April Fool than to be a heathen. Go ahead.
Speak you unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house.
Right. So you have this ordinance that is given unto the children of Israel. This is an ordinance of protection. Speak you unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, in the 10th day of this month. So automatically the beginning of our year starts dealing with the things of Yahweh. So Yahweh automatically makes sure that we don't get far down in the year. And this is what we do. We have a tendency to try to take care of our own things and push Yahweh further and further back. He starts off the year. Here's the beginning of the year. Now, here's your first holy day right away, so that the mindset of Israel starts, at least begins on the right note. Go ahead.
Verse 4. And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto his house take it according to the number of the souls. Every man according to his eating shall make your count for the lamb.
Right. This is a commandment given unto Israel. And understand something. Everyone, it says, in the 10th day of this month, you shall take to them every man a lamb. Every man has to provide his own lamb. If that's not enough, then you and the neighbor share. But everybody has to provide their own lamb. Now, we can go into other parts where Yahweh says that there are certain sacrifices that must be done, and he provides alternatives. He said, if you can't afford the lamb, then get this. If you can't afford such and such, then get 2 turtle doves. When it comes down to the atonement of your souls, Yahweh didn't offer you any alternatives. There is no other alternative, and I don't think we kind of get that in our head that there's something else that can be done. No, he didn't give any alternatives when it came down to this, and he specifically gave alternatives in other parts of the law for other things. He did not do that for the Passover. The lamb was set to take on the sins of the children of Israel when we deal with Yahshua, and then when we deal with the protection to be protected from the destroyer, you couldn't go and get some other kind of animal. See, we have to remember what the instructions were and what the instructions were for. And we kind of forget that as we go on about doing our own thing, because we will, in a minute, substitute something. He didn't offer any substitution for this. And it's very clear in other places that he offered substitution. So he tells us where we can get those things from. He tells us how you get them out from the ewes or the goats. He tells you, specifically when it comes down to this, because this is atonement blood here, and just not any old blood is not going to do. Now, it takes blood to make atonement for sin, but when you talk about something of this magnitude, you have to pay attention to the instructions that were given. Go ahead.
Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. You shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats.
Your lamb shall be without blemish. So our offering has to be the best that we can offer. How do we do something in this day of time without blemish? The best that we can do. And if it's not the best that you can do, it has a blemish. When we decide that we're going to do everything else and then we're going to take care of Yahweh stuff at the last minute, that's a blemish sacrifice. See, we blemish our own sacrifices. We blemish our own offerings by how we do it. Go ahead.
And you shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month. And the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening.
The whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. Everybody has to take part in this thing to understand that something has to die for you. Go ahead.
And they shall take of the blood, and strike it on the 2 side posts and on the upper door posts of the houses, wherein they shall eat it.
Right. On the side posts, it says, and they shall take the blood and strike it on the 2 side posts and on the upper door posts of the houses, wherein they shall eat it. So the lamb had to be consumed, and it had to be a mark over the door and on the 2 side posts, not on the threshold. You cannot trample on holy blood. It wasn't placed on the bottom, side, and top. Go ahead.
And they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it.
Now you have to consider something. Now they're being protected by the blood of this lamb, but he's very adamant about they got to eat it. A lot of times we talk about being covered under the blood of the lamb, but you also have to understand that they had to consume the very lamb that they had shed the blood. Go ahead.
Eat not of it raw, nor sodden at all with water, but roast with fire, his head with his legs, and with the purtenance thereof. And you shall let nothing of it remain until the morning. And that which remains of it until the morning you shall burn with fire. And thus shall you eat it, with your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it in haste. It is Yahweh's Passover.
It is Yahweh's Passover. Some serious things were about to take place. So they had to be ready for all of these things that were going to take place there. Thank you. Go ahead.
Verse 12. For I'll pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I'll execute judgment. I am Yahweh.
So this is executing judgment against all the gods of Egypt. We are in a modern day Egypt right now to this day. All we have to do is turn over our dollar. We'll see the pyramid. We'll see the all-seeing eye of Horus, which is an Egyptian god. We'll see everything here made in the form of a pyramid. I used to think that all houses had to be made in a triangular fashion for the water to run off. Then I started seeing buildings in other places and found out that they wasn't all made like pyramid. Everything here is made like a pyramid. Every building, every structure. You start looking at buildings in other places and you're like, well, how's that building flat? Then you find out that it just has a gradual slope on the top. And that's all you need for the rain to wash off. All your driveways it's not a steep hill. All it has to be is a small decline, water run down. So we don't really consider that even our houses are built in the shape of idol worship. It's not even something that we even consider. But it's not like they offer us a whole lot of other building, plans. When you get ready to buy a house, it was like you can worship the God like this or like that. Which one you want? That's all the options you got. But this is what they do here. So when Yahweh comes and brings this judgment, we would have to understand why it would even come down to even the very regular houses. They're all built still in the shape of Egyptian worship. Go ahead.
And the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I'll pass over you. And the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt.
Right. So here it is. When we look at certain situations, we say, hey, they have a destroyer here roaming the streets of America. 1 minute they say, hey, it may not get some people. Understand, this was not a situation where Yahweh just said, I'm going to protect all of Israel. He said, I'm going to protect all of obedient Israel. That's something we need to learn the difference between. Go ahead.
And this day shall be unto you for a memorial, and you shall keep it a feast to Yahweh throughout your generations. You shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever.
All right, let's go to Leviticus chapter 16. And Yahweh said, this thing must be done forever. Anywhere we have the opportunity to keep Yahweh's Passover, then we are to try our best to make that happen. Now that what we just read was our, initial Passover. At this point, of course, it's just that physical animal that is having to lose its life so that we can be protected. Leviticus chapter 16, and we're going to read verses 1 through 22.
And Yahweh spake unto Moshe after the death of the two sons of Aaron, when they offered before Yahweh and died.
Right. Now, some would say, if you Aaron is a priest, so, he got extra protection. Yahweh don't play that. So I don't care who your dad is. You come wrong, you're going to get dealt with. Go ahead.
And Yahweh said unto Moshe, speak unto Aaron your brother, that he come not at all times into the holy place within the veil before the mercy seat, which is upon the ark, that he die not, for I'll appear in the cloud upon the mercy seat.
Speak unto your brother, warn him. Make sure he understand. Because if he do this thing and he doesn't do it right, he is going to die. Go ahead.
Thus shall Aaron come into the holy place with a young bullock for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering.
First things first. Before he come into the holy place, he needs to have an offering. If he don't have an offering, let's not even step. This is the first part of the instruction. He starts dealing with how he's supposed to come as far as dress later. First thing, if you not coming with an offering, don't come. See, this is that thing where when we started saying, okay, we have our holy days and you need to register, people start saying, well, what is that? Every man supposed to pay for his own lamb. Every man supposed to bring his own lamb. Not two people purchase all the lamb for everybody else. And when you let some stuff slide for a while, people start to believe that that's how it's supposed to be done. Go ahead, bro.
Verse 4, he shall put on the holy linen coat, and he shall have the linen breeches upon his flesh, and shall be girded with a linen girdle.
Right. So now it's getting into, first of all, let him show up with his offering. Then he better be dressed a certain way. And Yahweh not playing. He said, look, tell your brother, or I'm going to kill him. Yahweh doesn't offer any other things when it comes down to that. He's very merciful in certain things. In other things, you might want to make sure you follow your instructions. Go ahead.
And with the linen mitre shall he be attired.
Right. Make sure he got something on his head. Sometimes people don't know what a mitre is. Before he come before Yahweh, make sure he got an offering, make sure he dressed right, and make sure he has a head covering on. Go ahead.
These are holy garments. Therefore shall he wash his flesh in water, and so put them on.
Mm-hmm.
And he shall take of the congregation of the children of Israel 2 kids of the goats for a sin offering, and 1 ram for a burnt offering.
Mm-hmm.
And Aaron shall offer his bullock of the sin offering, which is for himself, and make an atonement for himself and for his house. And he shall take the 2 goats, and present them before Yahweh at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And Aaron shall cast lots upon the 2 goats, 1 lot for Yahweh, and the other lot for the scapegoat.
Mm-hmm.
And Aaron shall bring the goat upon which Yahweh's lot fell, and offer him for a sin offering.
So the goat upon which Yahweh's lot fell, he must be offered up. Go ahead.
But the goat, on which the lot fell to be the scapegoat, shall be presented alive before Yahweh, to make an atonement with him, and to let him go for his scapegoat into the wilderness.
All right, so 1 sacrifice, 1 let go. Go ahead.
And Aaron shall bring the bullock of the sin offering, which is for himself, and shall make an atonement for himself and for his house, and shall kill the bullock of the sin offering, which is for himself. And he shall take a censer full of burning coals of fire from off the altar before Yahweh, and his hands full of sweet incense beaten small, and bring it within the veil. And he shall put the incense upon the fire before Yahweh, that the cloud of the incense may cover the mercy seat that is upon the testimony, that he die not.
And he shall put the incense upon the fire before Yahweh, that the cloud of the incense may cover the mercy seat that is upon the testimony, that he die not. So he could have bring the offering, dress right, and then turn around and not do this and still die. Go ahead.
And he shall take of the blood of the bullock, and sprinkle it with his finger upon the mercy seat eastward, and before the mercy seat shall he sprinkle of the blood with his finger 7 times. Then shall he kill the goat of the sin offering, that is for the people, and bring his blood within the veil, and do with that blood as he did with the blood of the bullock, and sprinkle it upon the mercy seat, and before the mercy seat. And he shall make an atonement for the holy place, because of the uncleanness of the children of Israel.
All right, verse 15. Then shall he kill the goat of the sin offering that is for the people. So first, he had to take care of himself. Then after he took care of himself, then he can then take care of the things concerning the people. Now, we would turn around and do that all backwards. Because some of us will go out and deal with things concerning other folks before we've done the things concerning our house. He got to make atonement for his house first. And if he don't take care of himself, he is not in the right situation to even deal with the people. Go ahead.
And because of their transgressions and all their sins, and so shall he do for the tabernacle of the congregation that remains among them in the midst of their uncleanness. And there shall be no man in the tabernacle of the congregation when he goes in to make an atonement in the holy place, until he come out, and have made an atonement for himself, and for his household, and for all the congregation of Israel. And he shall go out onto the altar that is before Yahweh, and make an atonement for it, and shall take of the blood of the bullock, and of the blood of the goat, and put it upon the horns of the altar round about.
So he has to anoint the altar with this blood, because blood makes atonement for sin. Go ahead.
And he shall sprinkle of the blood upon it with his finger 7 times, and cleanse it, and hallow it from the uncleanness of the children of Israel. And when he has made an end of reconciling the holy place, and the tabernacle of the congregation, and the altar, he shall bring the live goat. And Aaron shall lay both his hands upon the head of the live goat, and confess over him all the lawlessness of the children of Israel, and all their transgressions and all their sins, putting them upon the head of the goat, and shall send him away by the hand of a fit man into the wilderness. And the goat shall bear upon him all their lawlessness unto a land not inhabited, and he shall let go the goat in the wilderness.
So then one goat takes on the sins of the children of Israel, and then you have the one that is sacrificed. So now let's go to Luke chapter 23. Luke chapter 23, and we're going to read verses 1 through 25.
Luke chapter 23 and verse 1. And the whole multitude of them arose and led him on to Pilate. And they began to accuse him, saying, We found this fellow perverting the nation and forbidding to give tribute to Caesar, saying that he himself is the Messiah, a king.
And so what are we going to do when the powers that be say that our gathering on the Sabbath or our gathering on the holy days is against the King of America? What we going to do? Because that's is what's being said here. And understand, this is Israelites that's doing this. See, we like to put, color things a lot of different ways. No. It's our people turning us in to the Gentiles. But it's our people doing this. Go ahead.
And Pilate asked him, saying, Are you the king of the Yehudis? And he answered him and said, You say it. Then said Pilate to the chief priests and to the people, I find no fault in this man.
Now check this out. The Gentiles are trying to let our people, let the man go. But it's us that keeps pushing for him to be crucified. And these are not like righteous people who are trying to let him go. These are people who have done evil in other places, but they look, man, I don't, this right here don't even make sense to me. I won't let this dude go. Go ahead.
And they were more the fierce, saying, He stirs up the people, teaching throughout all Jewry, beginning from Galilee to this place. When Pilate heard of Galilee, he asked whether the man were a Galilean. And as soon as he knew that he belonged unto Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod, who himself also was at Jerusalem at that time. And when Herod saw Yahshua, he was exceeding glad, for he was desirous to see him of a long season, because he had heard many things of him, and he hoped to have seen some miracle done by him. Then he questioned with him in many words, but he answered him nothing. And the chief priests and scribes stood and vehemently accused him.
Uh-huh.
And Herod, with his men of war, set him at naught, and mocked him, and arrayed him in a gorgeous robe, and sent him again to Pilate. And the same day Pilate and Herod were made friends together, for before they were at enmity between themselves. And Pilate, when he had called together the chief priests and the rulers and the people, said unto them, You have brought this man unto me, as one that perverts the people. And, behold, I have examined him before you, have found no fault in this man touching those things whereof you accuse him.
Right. I can't even find the fault that y'all talking about. Go ahead.
No, nor yet Herod, for I sent you to him. Lo, nothing worthy of death is done unto him. I will therefore chastise him and release him. For of a necessity he must release one unto them at the feast.
So, if for necessity he must release one unto them at the feast, even the heathen automatically believes, okay, it must be the guy who hasn't done anything wrong. So, of course, this is going to be the one that we're going to release. Go ahead.
And they cried out all at once, saying, Away with this man, and release unto us Barabbas.
Right. Now, this is Israel after we have been brainwashed by our leaders. Now, what we request is the murderer. Go ahead.
Who for a certain sedition made in the city and for murder was cast into prison.
This is who we desire. Say, oh, you got the free one, free that one. This Israel now. This is what we declare. Kill the innocent man, but let the guilty man go free. Go ahead.
Pilate, therefore, willing to release Yahshua, spake again to them. But they cried, saying, Crucify him, crucify him. And he said unto them the third time, Why, what evil has he done? I have found no cause of death in him. I will therefore chastise him and let him go. And they were instant with loud voices, requiring that he might be crucified. And the voices of them and of the chief priests prevailed. And Pilate gave sentence that it should be as they required.
And Pilate gave sentence that it should be as they required. Because at the end of the day, they are also in charge of an area, but they have people over them. And eventually, if our people then go even unto Caesar, keep going up higher, then those people who rule over that province is going to have a problem. Go ahead.
And he released unto them him that for sedition and murder was cast into prison, whom they had desired, but he delivered Yahshua to their will.
He delivered Yahshua to their will. So when we go back to Leviticus and we see those two goats that we read about, that one was sacrificed and another let free, here Israel then requires that the incorrect one is sacrificed. But so that the prophets were correct and that the prophecies were fulfilled, Yahshua had to be that one that this was done to. But that was also done out of our hands. And that's something that we have to consider, that it was our people convinced by the things that we heard. We were overly convinced by the things that the scribes and Pharisees said, and we wanted to condemn this person to death based on our hearing. And it's the exact same thing we do today. We see enough television programs and we say it must be so. It must be so. Let's do it as we have heard. Let's go to John chapter 13. One thing the heathen has is he has this the power of his media, that he will make the lie come before our eyes and our ears about 50 to 100 times. and it will program our thought process and our thinking, and we will be operating in a way and never even know or consider that we have been programmed to think that way. And all you have to do, this programming starts very early. When you get ready to, you sit down and let the kids watch TV, watch how bright the colors are, watch how loud the program is. And before you know it, your kids in front of you asking you for everything they just seen on that TV. That TV has told them that this is the thing to have. And they come to you and say, I got to have this thing. So it started there. And we can see it when it happens to them because, we're on a deeper level. But do we see it when it happens to us? We watch something and it says this person is cool. We say, oh man, I'm going to get me one of those jackets. So I'm going to be cool like that person. Same thing happened to us. It just happened to us in a different way. John chapter 13, and let's start at verse 1.
Now before the feast of the Passover, when Yahshua knew that his hour was come, that he should depart out of this world unto the Father, having loved his own which were in the world, he loved them unto the end. And supper being ended, the devil having now put into the heart of Yehudas Iscariot, Simeon's son, to betray him, Yahshua knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he was come from Elohim and went to Elohim, he rises from supper, and laid aside his garments, and took a towel, and girded himself. After that he pours water into a basin, and began to wash the disciples' feet, and to wipe them with the towel wherewith he was girded. Then cometh he to Simeon Peter. And Cephas says unto him, Adonai, does you wash my feet? Yahshua answered and said unto him, What I do you knoweth not now, but you shall know hereafter.
Right, but we can get off into this law, and they put a washing area before the place where they were to do these offerings and all of these things, and those brothers had to wash their hands and their feet before they even went in to perform those things. So when you read some of this, if you don't go back to some of the things in the law, you will not understand that even here in the New Testament, there is law that's being done here, but it's being done on a much higher level. And that's what Yahshua says. I didn't come to do away with the law. I came to magnify the law. As it is written, he will magnify the law and make it honorable. So it's much more than just a carnal washing at this point. Now, this is a regenerating and cleansing thing. Go ahead.
Cephas says unto him, You shall never wash my feet. Yahshua answered him, If I wash you not, you have no part with me.
Right, because what he's thinking of in a natural way, that's putting you beneath me if I allow you to do that. And because I believe that you are a great man, I cannot allow you to do that to me. And Yahshua explains something to him with all you hurting is yourself. With your preconceived notion of what you think a servant is. Go ahead.
Simeon Peter says unto him, Adonai, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head. Yahshua says to him, He that is washed needs not save to wash his feet, but is clean every whit. And you are clean, but not all.
So we're talking about a real spiritual thing there to have this foot washing. And because we have other people here with us, we have the opportunity to wash one another's feet. But then you have to consider, we have people that may be watching the program, people who have been a part of the congregation for a while, but they by themselves. They have to wash their own feet. They don't have anybody else there to do it. And is it power in that? Yes, it is. Go ahead.
For he knew who should betray him. Therefore said he, You are not all clean. So after he had washed their feet, and had taken his garments, and was set down again, he said unto them, Know you what I have done to you? You call me Master and Adonai, and you say well, for so I am. If I then, your Adonai and Master, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you should do as I have done to you.
I have given you an example that you should do as I have done unto you. And if he is our example, there's a whole lot of things that we should truly alter. Because what we learned on Sunday morning was one thing, and we get in this book, and our example says something altogether different. Our example kept the Sabbath and remembered the Sabbath to keep it holy. Yet we still went to church every Sunday morning. That was not the example that we were given. Go ahead.
Verse 16. Verily, verily, I say unto you, the servant is not greater than his master, neither he that is sent greater than he that sent him. If you know these things, happy are you if you do them. I speak not of you all. I know whom I have chosen, but that the scripture may be fulfilled, he that eats bread with me has lifted up his heel against me. Now I tell you before it come, that when it is come to pass, you may believe that I am he. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that receives whomsoever I send receives me, and he that receives me receives him that sent me.
I say unto you, he that receives whomsoever I send receives me, and he that receives me receives him that sent me. So then there's a situation. We speak the word of Yahweh our Elohim, but then a lot of times we get in a situation where we become dismayed when people do not receive our testimony. They did not receive your testimony because they did not receive your Father. That ain't your place to deal with that. You move on. It wasn't you that they did not receive. And that's something that we have to understand and take into consideration when we're talking to people. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 16.
Deuteronomy chapter 16 and verse 1. Observe the month of Abib, and keep the Passover unto Yahweh your Elohim. For in the month of Abib, Yahweh your Elohim brought you forth out of Egypt by night. You shall therefore sacrifice the Passover unto Yahweh your Elohim, of the flock and the herd, in the place which Yahweh shall choose to place his name there.
In the place where Yahweh shall choose to place his name there. So we have one thing where the Passover is instituted. But then we have, as we are beginning to have a holy place set up, then Yahweh is allowing us to sanctify these gatherings. So you set apart a place, an area where you're going to do certain things. That is why we have a sanctuary that we don't do other stuff in. And there's a lot of times that people really don't understand why, after certain areas, hey, as certain things are accomplished, we close the door and lock it. Everything won't be done in that room. If everything is done in that room, it is no longer sanctified and separated. Go ahead.
You shall eat no leavened bread with it. 7 days shall you eat unleavened bread therewith.
Now, because you see this and it automatically mentions the Passover, and then it talks about eating unleavened bread. These are some of the things that helped our people from generation to generation start pushing those things together and making them the same feast. And they are not the same feast. You eat unleavened bread with the Passover, but that's not the Feast of Unleavened Bread. The Feast of Unleavened Bread doesn't start until the next day. Go ahead.
Even the bread of affliction, for you came forth out of the land of Egypt in haste, that you may remember the day when you came forth out of the land of Egypt, all the days of your life. And there shall be no leavened bread seen with you in all your coasts 7 days, neither shall there anything of the flesh, which you sacrifice the first at even, remain all night until the morning.
Verse 4, and there shall be no leavened bread seen with you in all your coasts 7 days. Now, I know we do a lot of cleaning, and we do a lot of removing of leaven, which A lot of that we end up doing because here in the daughter of Babylon, they put anything with something else. The whole part of the leaven was about what we were going to consume and eat. But these people put leavening agents in everything. So there's a whole level of cleaning and a level of investigation that we're going through that in a righteous land we wouldn't have to. Because that stuff wouldn't even be in there. These people will take a turkey sausage and then put it in a pork casing. What kind of sense? And you'll be so happy, you're like, oh man, turkey sausage. And you just chewing. You done already, you on swallow number 2 before you realize who would put the turkey inside the pork? But see, this is what happens in an unrighteous land. There's some things that has to be, ironed out. But they're in the process of taking full control of the earth. And they will use any and everything they can to do it. Go ahead.
Verse 5. You may not sacrifice the Passover within any of your gates, which Yahweh your Elohim gives you. But at the place which Yahweh your Elohim shall choose to place his name in, there you shall sacrifice the Passover at even.
At even, go ahead.
At the going down of the sun, at the season that you came forth out of Egypt.
Right. So because somebody else say that they have instituted the Passover or instituted some kind of curfew, that don't change what time our Passover gonna be. So, you get questions, so we going to have the Passover at 3 p.m.? No. How we going to do that? We can't change that. Won't be the first time I broke law. And you have to listen real intent, real deeply, and you'll find that there's certain things that they won't even say about churches. They letting churches voluntarily make their separation. See, they're not telling you don't go. But see, people automatically taking that on their own and they dealing with it. Go ahead.
Even what you talking about, keeping it at 3 p.m., what it says? It says Passover at evening, and he went even further, at the going down of the sun.
Right. And I keep trying to explain to people why you have to do that. This is a new day at the going down of the sun. Do you know that this is the cleanest you ever going to be today? Unless you did something as soon as the sun went down. All right? And some of us can do something stupid real fast. All right? So Yahweh said, look, I know my people. As soon as the sun go down, it's a new day. Hurry up and let's all of our holy days the same way. This is the cleanest you ever gonna get right here. Let this day go on, and we might do something stupid. As soon as we get out of this, in this hallway, we may do something stupid. But he said, hey, I got you before you did something stupid. That was the cleanest you were gonna be that day. Then at least your opportunity to come before Yahweh, you was as clean as you could possibly be spiritually at that moment. What happens if we do that at 3 o'clock in the evening? You realize all the stuff that you done that day, what done came out your mouth? See, we don't consider certain things. Think about how that then sits on you as you get ready to do an approach unto Yahweh. Remember now, there was instructions about how you approach unto Yahweh. And if Aaron, the high priest, was warned, you do one of these things wrong, you're gonna die. We have to consider that. Go ahead.
Verse 7. And you shall roast and eat it in the place which Yahweh your Elohim shall choose. And you shall turn in the morning and go unto your tents. 6 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and on the 7th day shall be a solemn assembly to Yahweh your Elohim. You shall do no work therein.
All right. Let's go to Exodus chapter 19. So by now, of course, we should have our unleavened bread because there's unleavened bread that's to be eaten with the Passover. But then in the next days, we're supposed to be eating unleavened bread every day. You are supposed to eat the unleavened bread. Okay? Those that have to work during that week, be very careful because we are people and creatures of habit. So if we go and we normally do something, habit will tell us to go and do the other thing that we normally do. So if you you read and then you have a certain snack, it's going to automatically, if you have gotten yourself into a habit of doing that, before you know it, you reading, habit has already done some certain things. When it come down to atonement, well, we don't eat or drink anything. That's one of the hardest classes for me to do because I made a habit out of this right here. Come atonement, there would be no cup right here, and my hand still go. Oh, ain't nothing right there. My hand is still shaking. Like, what is wrong with that dude? That dude is he got arthritis or something? Oh man, habit is already trying to pick up the cup that is not there. And you know what the problem? If somebody actually put a cup there, I'm gonna be in trouble. Exodus chapter 19, and let's read verses 1 through 16.
In the 3rd month, when the children of Israel were gone forth out of the land of Egypt, the same day came they into the wilderness of Sinai. For they were departed from Rephidim, and were come to the desert of Sinai, and had pitched in the wilderness, and there Israel camped before the mount. And Moshe went up unto Elohim, and Yahweh called unto him out of the mountain, saying, Thus shall you say to the house of Jacob, and tell the children of Israel, You have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and how I bare you on eagle's wings, and brought you unto myself. Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then shall you be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people.
Now that was an if. Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, then you shall be a peculiar treasure unto me. What we want to do is be a peculiar treasure unto Yahweh, even though we don't follow any other instructions of the covenant. He said if. And I guarantee you, once this destruction goes a full fold, we're going to want to separate from the rest of the nation to make sure that Yahweh knows the difference between us and them. When all of a sudden you got powers that be, me and the brothers were on the text line talking about when the orange guy said that his number was, if America get to just 200,000 deaths, it's a good thing. Where you get that number from? How you just reach in your head and pull out a number like 200,000? The same dude that said it wasn't real before. See, what happened was they didn't hit him on the plan. He was told about the plan later on. Now understand now. Remember, they did say that that's what they were gonna happen. Then the other nations, after he kept running his mouth and he kept tweeting, they said, we don't feel comfortable telling America our plans. That's exactly what they said. They said we were not going to share our information with America because of this orange guy. And that's exactly what they did. So he was saying one thing. Now he found out that they using this to their own liking and what they want to do. All of a sudden, now he changed completely. They just briefed him on the plan. So he didn't know the plan. Apparently, the Surgeon General didn't know the plan either. He said, ain't nothing wrong, ain't nothing gonna happen. Then all of a sudden, he changed. The powers that be are going to use any and everything. They are not, hey, we go in this book. They straight out just say, hey, just murder the babies. Find all the men and children, just kill them. And when you get down to anything talking about population control, the ones that they think need to leave is us. Turn around, son. Turn all the way around. You. Turn around. You. Turn around, look this way. Yeah. Yeah, you. Turn around. Go ahead, brother.
For all the earth is mine, and you shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and an holy nation. These are the words which you shall speak unto the children of Israel. And Moshe came and called for the elders of the people, and laid before their faces all these words which Yahweh commanded him. And all the people answered together and said, all that Yahweh had spoken, we will do.
We agreed everything that Yahweh has said, we will do. We are going to agree to the covenant. We're going to keep all of this stuff. That's what we always say in the beginning. Go ahead.
And Moshe returned the words of the people unto Yahweh. And Yahweh said unto Moshe, lo, I come unto you in a thick cloud, that the people may hear when I speak with you, and believe you forever. And Moshe told the words of the people unto Yahweh. And Yahweh said unto Moshe, go unto the people, and sanctify them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their clothes, and be ready against the third day. For the third day Yahweh will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai.
All right. So when we deal with this sanctification, we know that that is then done in threes. When we look at when some of those things were done in the beginning, it says in the third month after they would come forth out of Egypt. Now we're dealing with this situation where be ready against the third day. Sanctify yourself today and tomorrow. And on this third day, you are now on another spiritual level. Now you can present yourself before Yahweh our Elohim. Go ahead.
And you shall set bounds unto the people round about, saying, take heed to yourselves that you go not up into the mount, or touch the border of it. Whosoever touches the mount shall surely be put to death.
Right, because if Yahweh descends upon the mount, now it is the spirit of Yahweh sitting on it. It is now his seat. You cannot touch the place where Yahweh is, then you must be sacrificed at that point. So at any point where the spirit of Yahweh dwells, then there is a whole nother level change on that particular thing. Go ahead.
There shall not a hand touch it, but he shall surely be stoned or shot through. Whether it be beast or man, it shall not live. When the trumpet sounds long, they shall come up to the mount.
Right. So when you deal with when the brother touched that ark, understand what it was. It was the seat of Yahweh, our Elohim. He couldn't touch the seat. Go ahead.
And Moshe went down from the mount unto the people, and sanctified the people, and they washed their clothes. And he said unto the people, be ready against the third day, come not at your wives.
Right. So then understanding how these days are then set up, this is something that we have to begin to do to sanctify ourselves from this very point leading up to our Feast of First Fruits, so that we will be sanctified against the third day at the point that we then make our appearance before Yahweh our Elohim. Go ahead.
And it came to pass on the third day in the morning that there were thunders and lightnings and a thick cloud upon the mount, and the voice of the trumpet exceeding loud, so that all the people that was in the camp trembled.
All right, let's go to our Exodus chapter 23. Exodus chapter 23, and let's read verses 14 through 17.
Verse 14. 3 times you shall keep a feast unto me in the year. You shall keep the feast of unleavened bread.
Now, when he's talking about keeping the feast unto him in the year, these are feasts that appearances are made, not the number of feasts, because we understand that we have 7 feasts. Go ahead.
You shall eat unleavened bread 7 days, as I commanded you, in the time appointed of the month Abib.
Right. So when you talk about making the appearance, people automatically put Passover and all of those together, but the appearance is in the Feast of Unleavened Bread. That's why he mentions this. And this should automatically, get somebody's attention when they try to push Passover and unleavened bread together. When he mentions the appearance, he didn't mention Passover. The appearance is not in Passover. Passover is one day. The appearance is in the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So you shall keep the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Go ahead.
For in it you came out from Egypt, and none shall appear before me empty. And the feast of harvest, the first fruits of your labors, which you have sown in the field, and the feast of ingathering, which is in the end of the year.
So then what we call Pentecost, and then what we call tabernacles. Go ahead.
When you have gathered in your labors out of the field. 3 times in the year all your males shall appear before Yahweh, your Elohim.
Right, and we have an appearance that is happening within this week. So then we sanctify ourselves starting at this point. You have Passover, first day of Feast of Unleavened Bread. The next will be our first fruit. We will then make our appearance, but then the brothers will be sanctified against the third day. So making that plain, no cohabitation. Do brothers understand what I'm saying, the words that are coming out of my mouth? Sanctify yourself against the third day. Sleep downstairs if you got to. Let's go to Matthew chapter 5. You got to go get in the doghouse, you get you a bone with him, and you gonna stay out there. Matthew chapter 5, and let's read verses 21 through 24.
Verse 21. You have heard that it was said by them of old time, you shall not kill. And whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of the judgment. But I say unto you. Now, Yahshua is then taking this law on a higher level than what Moshe offered. People all the time talking about, they keeping that old bondage. They keeping that old law. They don't understand that Yahshua's law is harder than the one in the Old Testament. I don't know what they reading. He said, you have heard that it was said by them of old time, you shall not kill. And whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of the judgment. Now this Christ talking, right? Go ahead. But I say unto you, that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment.
Now how many times we done that? That we angry with somebody and think our cause is just. See, half the time we get a unjust cause because we mad at somebody for what somebody else said. We don't even know if they did it or not. So now we were mad at that person. Why? Because then they did such and such. How you know that? Well, Kim them told me. Oh, you didn't see it. Oh, you weren't there. Oh, and you didn't talk to them either. So you walking around with your jaws puffed up, and you don't even know what happened. You ain't talk to nobody. You talk to somebody who talked to somebody. And you think your cause is just. Go ahead.
And whosoever shall say to his brother, Reka, shall be in danger of the council. But whosoever shall say, you fool, shall be in danger of hellfire.
Man, if fool can get you hellfire, our fire got a nuclear bomb in it. Because we got some choice words that we say that's way worse than fool. I mean, some of them start with an F. Go ahead, bro.
Therefore, if you bring your gift to the altar, and there remember that your brother has aught against you.
Right. You remember that your brother has aught against you because you know what you did. Go ahead.
Leave there your gift before the altar and go your way.
Leave your gift. Pause. Don't offer your gift right now. Why? Because now it is a blemished sacrifice. If you offer it now, it is blemished. Pause. Fix that situation. Then come and offer your gift. Now your sacrifice is now perfect. Why? Because it's the best that you can do. Go ahead.
First be reconciled to your brother, and then come and offer your gift.
All right. Let us hear the conclusion of this matter. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 11. First Corinthians chapter 11. And let's start that at verse 17.
Verse 17. Now in this that I declare unto you, I praise you not, that you come together not for the better, but for the worse. For first of all, when you come together in the church, I hear that there be divisions among you, and I partly believe it. For there must be also heresies among you, that they which are approved may be made manifest among you.
Right. There's certain things that Yahweh need to let come up in the church. He said, no. Let this heresy, let this false belief, let it come in. Because in this, I'm going to show who are the chosen ones among you. When I display who gets pulled off to the left, who gets pulled off to the right, who decides they're not going to do anything, let it come in, because I'm going to show who's approved. So Yahweh not going to come through here and float and start pointing at people. No. That's not what he's going to do. He's going to let some heresies come. And then in time, he's going to show who dealt with things accordingly. Go ahead.
When you come together, therefore, into one place, this is not to eat the Adonai's supper. For in eating everyone takes before other his own supper, and one is hungry and another is drunken.
Right. Not understanding what the things of Yahshua is about, not understanding the things of the spiritual weight of the Passover. We just take it as some kind of hangout. So we invite our friends and our friends' friends, and then they turn around and come and eat damnation unto themselves. Now, what kind of friend are you? Go ahead.
What? Have you not houses to eat and to drink in? Or despise you the church of Elohim, and shame them that have not? What shall I say to you? Shall I praise you in this? I praise you not. For I have received of the Adonai that which also I delivered unto you, that the Adonai Yahshua the same night in which he was betrayed took bread. And when he had given thanks, he brake it and said, Take, eat, this is my body, which is broken for you. This do in remembrance of me. After the same manner also he took the cup, when he had supped, saying, This cup is the New Testament in my blood. This do you as oft as you drink it in remembrance of me.
Right, and we know when we're supposed to do it. This was done at the Passover. But what did the heathen do? Institute a so-called communion every month. We know when he did this. We know when this is supposed to be done. Go ahead.
For as often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, you do show the Adonai's death till he come.
Right. And when did he die? It's real easy for us to figure out when these things are supposed to be done. So how do we even allow somebody to convince us that this was supposed to be done every month? Go ahead.
Wherefore, whosoever shall eat this bread and drink this cup of the Adonai unworthily shall be guilty of the body and blood of the Adonai.
Right. Before we approach unto the altar to take part in those things, let us examine ourselves. First of all, this is one of the reasons why we say to take part in that, you need to be baptized in the name of Yahshua before you take part in his body and in his blood. When you consider the things of what happened when Yahshua did take the Passover, understand He only had his Passover with the baptized individuals that was following him. All those people were baptized. And they were baptizing other people. He didn't even have his Passover with the masses and with everybody else. Go ahead.
But let a man examine himself, and so let him eat of that bread and drink of that cup. For he that eats and drinks unworthily eats and drinks damnation to himself, not discerning the Adonai's body.
Right. It's like the situation where Saul was casting out demons, and then you have the other brothers that said, well, hey, we gonna cast out demons too. So we cast out demons by, because they heard, they cast out demons in Yahshua's name. They said, well, we gonna cast out demons in Yahshua's name too, by Yahshua, whom Paul preached. Oh, you don't preach? No, Paul preached. But you gonna cast out the demons by what somebody else do. Yeah. When it was done, they left out naked and wounded. The demon came off of them people and jumped on them. Right. Go ahead.
For this cause many are weak and sickly among you, and many sleep. For if we would judge ourselves, we should not be judged.
For if we would judge ourselves, we should not be judged. And how do you judge yourself? When you deal with a situation, we understand what thus says Yahweh, but this is a very big book. So and there are also times where we kind of get, caught up in our own way. When something does come to us, this is why Yahweh will allow some things to be presented unto us. We may be going through a certain thing, and then all of a sudden, we just meet a stranger on the street, and they say something, and it automatically fits the thing that you just got through doing. Yahweh is giving us some direction on what to do. And then when that comes to us, and we are able to back up or repair that particular thing, then now we have judged ourselves. Then now you don't have to wait for Yahweh to chastise you to deal with that situation. If we judge ourselves, then we don't have to worry about being judged. Because if we face those things at judgment, we're going to have a much worse situation having to deal with something at judgment and not that we were able to deal with it on ourselves. Even if we go down to the courthouse, before they bring the people in for a dispute, they bring those people out together. They put them in a room. All right, can y'all reconcile this? Because if y'all can reconcile this on your own, we're not going to go in this courtroom. But they give you an opportunity to reconcile it on your own. And sometimes everybody feel like they right. So nobody reconciles. But then once they go in there unto that judge, once he says, this is what it is, that's what it is. And sometimes you'll be better off reconciling than pushing it all the way to the end to see if you're going to win or not. So it's a very powerful thing that if we would judge ourselves, that we should not be judged, especially when everybody else is judged. What we want to do is make sure that Yahweh sees a difference between us. That he knows the difference between us and the rest of the world. This is not about what color somebody is. You have Israelites of all ethnicities. And you have people who have become spiritual Israel, and they walk in the law stronger than our own people. They walk in the spirit of the law. Do you think Yahweh will not preserve them? See, once before, when we got down to this so-called Y2K thing, and everybody thought the world was going to end because of the computers, everybody started all of a sudden finding where their church was again. They done forgot where their church was. But they found their church again. But as soon as things went back to normal, They forgot where it was again. Let's see how long things go, because we know that Yahweh has to bring the children of Israel out of all the places wherein we've been scattered. That is not going to happen under good circumstances. So certain things have to happen. So Yahweh will step back and let the heathen rage and let him imagine a vain thing. Because at the end of the day, it brings you closer to the redemption that Yahweh has promised unto us. That's all that we're going to do for tonight. We are now going to prepare to partake in the body and the blood of Yahshua, and let only those that have been baptized in the name of Yahshua partake in that. That's all that we're going to do for tonight. Shalom.
Shalom.